I'm Chrissy Clark, and these are the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News don't report on or don't report on enough. As always, today's show is going to be based in logic, facts, and truth. And today we've got an eye-opening story about how Kamala Harris attempted to jail a single mom with a special needs kid. A cast member, also, of the blasphemous Olympics opening ceremony dance is filing legal complaints. And then there's also some drama at the National Association of Black Journalists that we're going to dig into, so let's get into it. Kamala Harris instituted a truancy law to boost school attendance when she was the district attorney in San Francisco. The problem is that the law had no nuance, and so a woman named Cherie Peoples, who had a special needs daughter with sickle cell anemia, was jailed because her sick special needs daughter needed time away from school. Today's reporting comes to us from the Washington Free Beacon, and this was an original Kamala Harris quote from her 2011 inauguration, again as the district attorney of San Francisco. It reads, "We are putting parents on notice," then California AG said. "If you fail in your responsibility to your kids, we are going to work to make sure you face the full force and consequences of the law." Honestly, very here for this. You should have your children in school, of course, and truancy has been a massive problem in California for years. However, the article goes on to say that 2 years later, Cherie Peoples, a single mom of a special needs child, was jailed under that truancy law that Harris championed as the DA. Harris repeatedly asserted the need to crack down on truancy during her law enforcement career. She said, "These children will invariably be what will end up in our criminal justice system." She also said it was, quote, "time to get serious about the problem of chronic truancy in California," and she threatened the parents of truants with prosecution. Now, I'm very here for this. I actually think it's incredible that she ever did this in her time in office. I'm not going to lie, it makes Kamala look good, in my opinion. This is smart policy in general. The problem is that the law had no nuance in the way in which it was worded and put out and established. And honestly, people weren't very smart about it either. Come on, a little bit of common sense could have changed the way that this went. But the article continues to say, Cherie Peoples, which is this woman who was locked up, she wasn't some deadbeat parent allowing her child to play hooky. Her daughter Shayla has sickle cell anemia, a rare genetic condition that afflicts its sufferers with chronic pain. The 11-year-old had missed 20 days of school in 2013. Police officers then arrested Cherie Peoples for violating the truancy law, a misdemeanor that carries a $2,500 fine while she's paying for her sick special needs child and up to a year in jail. Peoples, who had an infant son when she was arrested, battled with the court system for 2.5 years to clear her arrest, which she was worried about with her future job prospects. Cherie Peoples also posted back in 2019 when Kamala was going through being a being a presidential nominee, or attempting to, back during the 2020 race. And Cherie Peoples said, "I can't believe this. The one responsible for sending me to jail just because my child is sick. Now she's running for president. No way, not today. Do not vote for #Kamala Harris." Kamala and Trump both have this weird dichotomy playing out where they want to be law and order people, but also have street cred. The problem for Kamala is that the Trump dichotomy works because he didn't pick the, quote, street cred, the felony conviction. I believe his supporters, and even people that are just critical thinkers, realize that it was a witch hunt to get a conviction on Trump. And we've known him for the last 8 years as a law and order dude, so it works for him, that dichotomy. However, Kamala ran as a cop. She ran as a prosecutor. And now she's also running as this bastion of progressivism, where she lets rioters and looters out of jail and then visits rapists in hospitals because they get shot by police for pulling weapons on police. I'm referencing Jacob Blake in, I believe, Wisconsin. She just needs to pick a lane, She needs to do a better job at striking the balance that Trump has, Because honestly, it's just confusing what Kamala's strategy is right now. And this next story speaks volumes about that exact point. Kamala once pledged in her 2020 campaign to keep transgender and any LGBT identifying criminal out of prison if elected president. So according to some reporting from the Daily Wire, during her 2020 presidential campaign, Kamala pledged that she would work to keep transgender criminals out of jail. This is part of Harris's now inactive campaign website, claiming that, quote, the LGBTQ plus community is exposed to higher rates of violence and assault in prison, and it is even more so with trans individuals. Harris, it says, would work as president to, quote, reduce incarceration of LGBT individuals. Now, it is not incumbent on any political nominee to tell people to not engage in crime. Like, the trans community, the LGBTQ community needs to own and have personal autonomy over not committing crimes. But this is what the website reads. Kamala understands the best way to address the issue is to seek alternatives to incarceration, aka not jailing people for crimes, to prevent trans individuals from being incarcerated in the first place. Kamala would also push to significantly reform our sentencing laws to further reduce sentences. But she's also the hard-on law enforcement person. It's just not adding up to me. J.D. Vance also had some comments about this. He said, I find it pretty weird that Kamala Harris was so fixated on the issues of transgender incarceration that she should seek alternatives to jail time for criminals who violate the law. I don't care what gender you think you are. If you break the law, you should go to jail. It's as simple as that. The Harris campaign did not respond to requests for comment. But I believe this article goes to my point that Kamala cannot pick a lane. Yes, she's flip-flopped on her position, but also it's just confusing. She's a prosecutor who's tough on crime and wants to make sure that criminals go to jail, and she's a prosecutor against convicted felon Trump. Unless the criminal magically identifies in a special way, and then they get no prison time at all, and we need to completely reform the prison system. And also, I think conservatives could hypothetically make the point that while it's horrible policy, it would keep men out of women's prisons. Moving on to our next story, the DJ for the controversial Olympic opening ceremonies filed legal complaints over alleged online abuse following the performance. So the DJ in question was the person standing in the middle of the table wearing a silver crown or halo of sorts. Today's reporting comes from the New York Post. It says a storm of outrage about the Paris Olympics opening ceremonies took a legal turn on Tuesday with a DJ who performed at the show saying her lawyer is filing complaints over a torrent of threats and other abuse that the icon has suffered online in the ceremony's wake. Now, I will say the New York Post is using she, her pronouns. I am genuinely unaware of how this person identifies. I cannot tell. The name of this person is Barbara Butch, so we're just going to refer to her as good old Barb. So Barb's lawyer said in a letter posted to her or Barb's Instagram that Barb, quote, has been threatened with death, torture, assault, and has been the target of numerous anti-Semitic, homophobic, sexist, and grossophobic insults. I'm not quite sure what grossophobic means. I feel like gross is a word used to describe something that is gross. So if you're phobic of something that's gross, you're just normal. I'm not quite sure what that means, but Barb's agent confirmed that the Instagram account is Barb's and that this was actually Barb's course of action, that Barb was going to be filing legal complaints. So the ceremony's artistic director, we do know this, Thomas Jolly, has repeatedly said that this was not inspired, this whole opening ceremony's dance was not inspired by the Last Supper. I fear it wasn't necessarily, or it was. Either way, he's obviously going to step back after the controversy and say that it wasn't. Who's to be in that person's mind, although it was too close to believe that it was anything other than that. But anyway, there are good arguments on both sides. Going on, it says that this, if you're in the listening audience, you can see it's the woman or the person in the middle with the blue dress and holding the heart in the hands and the halo honestly, this is the DJ that in question was the one depicting Jesus if it was in fact the Last Supper, which again, my personal opinion is that it likely was. It goes on to say that typically French judicial authorities examine the complaints like a legal filing like this and determine whether to launch a formal police investigation. So it's not necessarily a lawsuit, but it's kind of like a stay in France where they're implementing this in order to, or Barb, whatever you want to call her, has implemented this in hopes of getting the police to launch an investigation into this alleged bullying. Now, on a human level, of course, I feel bad when someone gets actually bullied, but I do believe that online hate from nobodies all across the world and actual in-person bullying or bullying from people in your life, that is very different. Those are two different things. I also don't think you can put yourself on a national stage of Olympic caliber and not expect some sort of backlash. I especially don't think you can do that when you are a larger person. Either way, no matter your looks, it's on you as an individual to deal with the consequences of your decision to be part of an international performance. The DJ in question, Barb, she had autonomy in picking whether to be part of this dance. And sorry, not sorry, the consequences for a cool opportunity like this means you have to deal with backlash. Welcome to the real world, sweetie. And in the real world, we love to focus on logic, facts, and truth. And that's exactly what I do here at Underreported Stories. So if you support my mission, would you be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel? If you're in the listening audience, rate this podcast and give it a 5-star review. It helps push the show and the algorithm to other people who would probably love to become a story seeker like yourself. Okay, this next story, woohoo, that's interesting. The co-chair of the National Association of Black Journalists is stepping down from her role in part because she got the opportunity to interview Donald Trump. In her tweets, she was seemingly upset that her organization was platforming Donald Trump by allowing her to ask questions to one of the most powerful men in the world. Today's report comes courtesy of the Daily Caller, and it says, National Association of Black Journalists co-chair, her name is Karen Attiah, I believe. She's a Washington Post columnist. She is stepping down as co-chair of the upcoming National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago. It's called NABJ 24, and it's hosting Trump for a moderated question and answer session hosted by Black women. It's hosted by Harris Faulkner, she's from Fox News, ABC News' Rachel Scott, and Semaphor's Kadia Goba. So Karen Attiah, again, a Washington Post correspondent, she was the co-chair of the NABJ 24 convention, and she said she's decided to step down as co-chair of the event. It goes on to say, or Karen's tweet goes on to say, to the journalists interviewing Trump, I wish them the best of luck. For everyone else, I'm looking forward to meeting and reconnecting with y'all in the Windy City. In more of her tweet that she put out, she said, while my decision was influenced by a variety of factors, I was not involved or consulted with in any way with the decision to platform Trump in such a format. To me, this makes no sense. I don't get this mentality of not platforming Trump because, no offense, but he doesn't need the National Association of Black Journalists for people to listen to him. He's one of the most powerful people in the world. He doesn't need your tiny platform. All this provides is an opportunity for people who dislike him to either debate him or ask tough questions of him, which is what you should want if you're a real journalist. But I think what's happening here, for Karen at least, is she doesn't have a love of journalism or a love for some sort of integrity. It's a fear she has that if Black people hear Donald Trump speak in a way that isn't manipulated or edited by mainstream media, they might actually like him, and that's a big yikes for her political agenda. And I can't say that as fact, it's just my opinion, but my opinions tend to be right. All right, we are breezing through the stories today. We are already at our final story. This one is a doozy, so stick with me. Metabiota, a pandemic research firm funded in part by the United States government and Hunter Biden, has been using Ukrainian labs to manipulate dangerous avian flus. Basically, all our favorite characters are using a biolab in Ukraine to do more potential gain-of-function research, and they have been since 2016. And potentially even 2014. Let me start by establishing Hunter Biden's role in this. According to research from the New York Post on Hunter Biden's laptop, Hunter Biden worked with his organization, Rosemont Seneca Partners, to send at least $500,000 to NABJ. And I wanted to clarify this report because it is very, very important, because the Washington Post likes to claim that this is some sort of for Pinocchio lie. It's not. This is established from Hunter's own emails. But Natalie Winters, who is the co-host of Steve Bannon's War Room, tweeted this morning that NABJ, a pandemic research firm funded by Biden, has used Ukrainian BioLabs to manipulate, quote, dangerous zoonotic diseases such as an avian influenza since 2016. The work was funded by Fauci through NIAID and the Pentagon. Okay, so I had to check all of this, obviously, for you guys. So as we've established, there is a connection between Rosemont Seneca Partners, whatever it's called, which is funded by Hunter Biden. That is confirmed, as we have from laptop data established from the New York Post, right? Now, this right here, this is a screenshot, shows an October 3rd to 4th, 2016 trilateral meeting between Poland, Ukraine, and the United States that was all about funding these projects. So we can see right here, if you're in the viewing audience, you can see where it says that this was funded in part by NABJ corporations. Now, the meeting was focused on, quote, existing frameworks, regulatory coordination, and ongoing cooperative projects in research, surveillance, and diagnostics of a number of dangerous zoonotic diseases such as avian flu, leptospirosis, and Crimea Congo hemorrhagic fever. Oh my gosh, I'm not a science girly. But goes on to say that the founder of NABJ, Nathan Wolf, has a long history of claiming that there is going to be a massive bird flu pandemic with a 40% mortality rate. And he's been preaching this to the World Economic Forum or from the platform of the World Economic Forum. It is incredibly frightening, very frightening. But what's made even worse is that this is being funded by the U.S. government, okay? I went and found the usspending.gov. I'm on the website, and it shows that the Department of Defense started funding NABJ research, which again we know is taking place in part in Ukraine in these biolabs. Back on February 10th of 2014, they gave an estimated $18.4 million from the Department of Defense for research and development in the physical engineering and life sciences category. And now we know that this was operating abroad. All of this is terrifying because this is a country that is at war, Ukraine, and it may have biolabs that could be bombed and potentially leak another pandemic. Again, this is a very new and speculative report, but nothing I've told you is not a fact. I'm just going to let you infer as you feel instead of telling you necessarily how I feel about this. But thank you guys so much for tuning into Underreported Stories today. If you are a real one, a real story seeker, will you please drop some sort of science-based emoji, like a test tube or something? If you want to just like copy and paste, there's an emoji linked in the description. You can do that. But while you're on your way out, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're listening, please take a screenshot of this podcast and then tag me on Instagram. It helps me to get to know the listening audience a little bit better. All right, friends, I will see you back here tomorrow.